Thanks for joining us. I'm Marga Ortigas, and this is About That. Today on the show, we meet a man who has spent most of his life unapologetically charting his own course, following his own drumbeat, if you will. He tells us he knew what he wanted for himself from childhood, despite what society around him might have expected. Well, it's worked. He's now 25 years into his chosen field, a massive success, and an icon, not just in his industry, but for the LGBTQI community in the Philippines. Who am I talking about? Well, none other than the inimitable fashion maven, Rajo Laurel.
Hi, Marga Ortigas.
Hi. World-class designer on your 25th year.
Yes, 25 years. Gosh, it feels really fast. So,
Does it? Are you still feeling as excited today as you were the first time you...
yes, absolutely. It's the reason why I wake up in the morning. It's the reason why I'm in the office by 8. It's still the love of my life.
You do seem really happy with the work that you're doing. I mean, if anybody's following you on Instagram, they see straight away these positive messages.
Correct.
Every morning you begin the day with that.
I begin the day with that for myself. Basically, I meditate a few minutes and then I sort of okay, what do I want to tell myself and what I want to share to the world and just to my universe, really. This is my message. And of course, there's so much ugliness out there. So I'm just trying to be that little positive light that sort of sharing this. But apart from that, you have to realize my work is all about that. Nobody comes to design to sort of go, can you design something for a funeral? You're always for a wedding, for a birthday, for a celebration, for a hot date, to sort of for lack of a better word, you have clients coming over, I want my husband back or something like that.
Right. That's an interesting request. Has that worked?
Yes and no.
Oh, okay.
The question I throw back is, are you sure?
Right, that's true. Has it helped you though to begin every day like that? How has that kind of...
Yes. Primarily because there's always going to be bad days. There's not always only good days. So it's essentially just telling myself. A lot of those messages are really for me. And then I just, because of social media, I'm able to share it. And I'm able to sort of have another avenue to sort of express myself, not just in my work, but more importantly, sort of my mindset.
Right. How did you begin to get to that perspective? Have you always been that way, or is that something you learned later on?
Yes and no. I was always been a happy person, but because of that sort of joyfulness, there are dark moments, and I did go through therapy, not for depression, just more for anxiety, and I was very lucky that I had parents who were modern enough to sort of understand that one does need therapy and one does sort of need help. You have to remember, I'm a child of the 80s, a teenager rather in the 80s, a child of the 70s, and during those times there are very few sort of very peculiar children. I was one of those peculiar children. I was already attracted to the arts and a little bit swishy, for lack of a better word. And my parents said, what's this? And it helped that I had support in therapy and became sort of more confident about myself and confident about what my capacities are as a person.
Was that difficult for you as well, dealing with that, considering you come from a rather political family that's very recognized and familiar in Philippine politics? Was that something that you felt pressure to maybe get into at some stage?
It was challenging, but I'm very lucky that we have family members who are also very much into the arts. So we have a lot of representations on whatever strengths you have. So yes, in the beginning, I was very pressured. I was the first grandchild. My dad was the governor of Batangas during that pivotal moment of my life. So there was always this sort of cloud that what ifs. But I guess I'm also very hard-headed, so I was determined to follow my dreams and to follow my path. So I didn't really listen to them, but I did ask their blessing, especially my grandparents, primarily to follow my dreams.
And they gave it? The grandparents?
Yeah, in fact, it was my grandparents who agreed first, and then they spoke to my father and said, bigay mo na, just because he'll probably a terrible lawyer.
Was that what they wanted you to do? Was go into
they were
law?
all lawyers. So basically, I was supposed to be one, but I'd be probably the most insignificant lawyer in the world.
Why did you feel it was important to get blessings from your parents or your grandparents?
No, number one, they'll have to pay for my tuition.
Right.
And number two, I think it's important. I mean, I had to find a way. And you know what? I've always believed if you didn't ask, the worst thing somebody can tell you is no. But at least I asked that if I could sort of like be a designer, follow this particular journey. You know, in the beginning, it was sort of like very challenging because my dad said flat out no. You know, do whatever you want. But, you know, but what he did request of me was finish college. You know, that's the only thing he asked of me. I did have a fine arts degree, but that wasn't enough for him. He said, I think I want another one. I said, okay. So he pulled me, went back to LaSalle, you know, finished my 3 years, got my human resource management undergraduate, which, you know, in the long run helped me out more. You know, because essentially I have this sort of like double-sided head of business and art. So I had them both.
Actually, yeah, it worked out.
It worked out.
How big is House of Laurel at the moment?
At the moment, we have 3 companies. We have the made-to-order, we have the ready-to-wear, and we also have the uniform company. We employ around 550 employees.
Wow. So that HR course
that HR course really helped out. So, you know, I think it's important, you know, oblivious to sort of like anyone's knowledge. I always believe that your parents are there to support you, and you know, no matter how you think that you don't think that they're doing the right thing, they're just after for your own good. And now that I'm older, I'm glad I listened to Dad. I'm glad I listened to my mom and got my degree.
There wasn't any kind of difficulty after you finished, and you were like, okay, now I'm gonna set up, you know, my own thing. Of course.
I mean, again, this whole thing started because I dreamt about it. I wanted it, and you know, literally wiped out my life savings in the beginning. I had a very humble beginning. One seamstress. I rented out a friend's basement. I didn't even have an aircon. I had one electric fan. So really, it started from the ground up. I mean, I think I'm very proud of that because I really didn't. You know, a lot of people say, "Oh, you did this because your father helped you out." I said, "Not really." After I graduated, after I got my diploma, I was on my own, and I slept on my studio for 6 years in the same place. I would meet clients, and you know, I built this from the ground up. So I'm very proud of that. A lot of challenges, obviously, because you sort of like have to build your name, your reputation. But it's one of the reasons why I love my work is because this is my child. I mean, I don't have children, but this is my child, and I'm at the halfway point of my career. I say halfway point because I always say like, your career is like an opera, and right now I'm sort of like in the melodious tone. So I'm in that part of my life that I have that particular stride. I know what I'm doing. I know what I'm doing. I know where I'm going. So it's a good time to sort of like celebrate that and look forward to what's going to happen next.
How have you kept the excitement? Because it does show that you're very happy to be flowing the way you are at the moment.
You know, you basically have to look at it like you're a child. There's always something new out there. I don't know. I mean, of course there are bad days. You just caught me on a good day.
Would have been interesting on a bad day.
I would have canceled our appointment. But on a good day like this, it's always about experimentation. You see, Marga, the difference, I guess, with what I do is anything I can imagine, I can make happen. So, I mean, can you imagine that particular gift? I close my eyes, I see things. I close my eyes, I see things, and I work with my hands and make it happen. I work with a team who's very talented. I work with people who have the same much passions with me. I surround myself with younger people. My design team right now is all under the age of 25. So all that energy, all that particular attraction makes me alive and makes me happy. Also, I tend to live in a bubble, and I don't know if that's good or bad, but I try not to sort of like see the negative out there. Like, for instance, if there's something bad on Facebook, I just automatically close it, so I just focus on what I find beautiful and find good, and just work on it and continue on that road.
Is there anything you're still looking to accomplish?
A lot more, obviously.
What else is your goal at this stage?
At this stage, is really my goal is to be able to define Philippine design and intrinsically leave behind this particular look. What is Filipino design? What makes us Filipino? I mean, in this day and age of fast fashion, of everybody's looking alike and homogeneous, who are we as a Filipino? And sometimes we forget that identity is who we wear and this is part and part. This is our armor. Our clothes are our modern day armor. And in the Philippines, because of all the influx of all these international brands, we're diluting ourselves. We forget who we are as a people. So my quest is to define that, and essentially this particular anniversary year, we're going to be trying to do that. What is Filipino design? Who are we? If we look around, it's disappearing, Marga. We all look the same.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Even just not in the Philippines, but around the world.
Yeah. Do you have an answer to that then? If somebody asks you, what is Filipino design?
I'm finding out. Okay. And that's probably part of the excitement. I mean, obviously there are certain clear aspects of who we are as Filipino. We love decoration. We love color. We love the idea of a fiesta, and we sort of love to have a good time. We love a good party, and we dress up for parties, and we are occasion dressers. And so essentially, those are the things that we sort of pick up on: color and ornamentation. Ever since the beginning, we've always been mahilig sa ornament.
You like
to sort of pile on the details.
Yeah. You've also had to deal with quite a lot of controversy in your career. I mean, people have attacked you as having copied designs of other people.
Yes.
How did you deal with things like that? That it didn't, in a way, it didn't destroy you, it didn't damage you?
It hurt me a lot. But at the same time, you go with the punches. And essentially you learn from it, and you learn from all of these things. Each lesson that comes by is part and parcel of how you be strong as a person. So it's a learning process. Everything is a journey. I mean, the good will always come with the bad. The ugly will always come with the beautiful, and you have to accept that. It's part of life. You can't say that everything's just beautiful. There are always going to be dark moments, and I think I embrace it. I actually tell myself, bring it on, because it makes me a better creative person.
In a concrete way, how would you deal with one of these dark moments? I mean, you've mentioned meditation. Is there anything else that you do?
I get out of town.
No wonder you're traveling a lot.
I travel a lot. So I tell my team that I have a 3-week gestation period. After 3 weeks, I have to get out of town. It doesn't have to be out of the country, just out of town, just sort of out of my workspace, and essentially do that. Meditation helps a lot. Exercise helps a lot. Friends and family. Surrounding yourself with people who genuinely love and care for you is important. I feel that's the reason why I thrive, because I'm constantly surrounded by family. I work with my family. I work with my sisters. My sisters are part of my team. It's a wonderful situation and setup to be in because of that.
Has that not caused you any problems, like working with family?
Of course it does,
yeah.
But it works for me.
Right.
Because I trust them. I mean, and I think one of the things that I believe in essentially is just respect one another and respect your areas of responsibility, and your strengths and weaknesses are. Like, for instance, my sister, I'll never she's in charge of HR, so I sort of that's her department. I'm in charge of marketing and creatives. That's my department. My mom's in charge of finance. So if somebody sort of comes in here with a number, I have to sort of wait, hold on, let me get back to you and find out. So all of a sudden I call my mom, can we give it at this price? At the end of the day, everybody puts in their weight, and everybody sort of becomes part and parcel of this wonderful machinery of House of Laurel.
So that's a good experience that you've had, because many people will say working with family can get very tricky difficult.
It can. I mean, it's like any relationship. You fight, you argue, but you have to sort of learn that we have one goal, and you have to begin with one goal in mind, and everybody understands that this is the goal that they want it to be.
Would you say that that's also something that's uniquely Filipino?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, it's a part of our DNA culture that we work as a unit. I mean, a lot of people, my friends from the West, sort of like even don't even bother to think that. In my case, from the very onset, it is always about, how to bring in my family in this.
I'm sure they now appreciate that you didn't turn out to be a lawyer after all of that.
I also appreciate them because in many ways they gave up their dreams in order to pursue mine.
Really?
My sister Venice was sort of like going to be on the way to the world of the academe. She wanted to become a teacher.
Okay.
And in fact, she's still doing that. She has a school in Alabang for children. But at the end of the day, she sort of like really gave up a lot of what she wanted to do in order to help us. I mean, my mom also, she wanted a lot of other things to do. However, she decided to help me out and essentially stopped her other businesses and joined me. My brother's also part of it. So it's sort of like a wonderful team effort. It's not, when you say House of Laurel, I really call it House of Laurel because it's just not just Rajo. It's a lot of people involved.
How does your dad feel about your success?
I slowly am getting closer to him now that we're both getting older. I spent Easter with him this Easter, and I know he's very proud of me. And it's a very strange, protracted relationship, but there's love. There's love there.
Has it been anything verbal that he said to you?
I heard from other people. He'll never tell it to me in my face.
That's typical from that certain generation.
They'll go around until it gets to you, but they'll never say it to your face.
Do you want to become a father one day? Do you have any?
I'm good. I have lots of nephews and nieces. My sister just gave birth to my 10th godson. So I have 10 already there. I don't know. I don't think so. I'm not ready to become a father, so I'm not going to entertain that. I'm a really good ninong. I'm a really good uncle. And I'll leave it at that. I have 2 dogs, and my dogs are enough. And my partner, Nix, is already enough.
Was that difficult to deal with, having a partner who also I think is in the artistic field?
Yes, he's a furniture and interior designer. We complement each other. I mean, obviously there is always challenges with relationships. With anything, it's work, Marga. You have to work at it. If you don't work at it, of course it will disappear or it will dissolve. It's a constant desire to just understand. I think it's also it's about being patient, and I'm never a patient person, but with my partner I've learned to really just sort of like be patient and sometimes just keep quiet. Sometimes it's better to just shut up. Don't say anything.
Maturity.
Yeah.
Was that easy for you guys to deal with in the context of the Philippines?
Yes and no. My family is more open. His is more what's the word I'm looking for? Conservative.
Right.
So there's a balance of dance. With any relationship, you cannot sort of like realize that your family is just like anybody's other family. I mean, my family is very open, and since I'm very public in many ways, he's not. So he had to learn that, oh my God, there's some things that are private and some things that are public, and it just so happens that in my case a lot more is more public. So it was difficult, but he understands.
And you didn't get any kind of negative response from people in Manila who knew you at that point?
With having a relationship?
Yes.
No, I didn't feel it. I didn't feel it. I was very well supported in that sense.
But I was going to say that makes you very lucky. I mean, because many others in the Philippines have a very difficult time.
Yes. But I think I think it's about being open-minded. I mean, there are many different kinds of relationships, and there are many different kinds of sort of like people. And I think we live in a time of acceptance, of inclusivity. I think it's good that we talk about these things, honestly, beyond just the matter of fact. I mean, it's a lot of things that are happening in the world, and openness and inclusivity is good.
How do you balance that? Just the being open in general. You're posting your photos of your trips. Just your life is very open in that sense, with the fact that in the Philippines, there is still very much that veneer of, the face that you show to the public. The filter, exactly.
I try not to be too filtered. But of course, you just share. I mean, it's common sense. If it's sort of like, if it will make another person sort of like uncomfortable, then of course, don't post it. And it's a lot of values that my parents and my grandparents taught me. It's just a conversation. It's a conversation between you and who's following you. So I actually, had many times when I deleted a post or whatnot, but it's common sense. It's just about sort of like what do you want to share. I always say that my social media or whatever I have in my life, it's just really about sharing to a friend. So if you're going to be if it's something that will make your friend upset or somebody upset, why bother? Don't post it na lang. But that's how I deal with that.
How would you define then a happy life?
Contentment and realizing that you really don't need a lot to make you happy. You have to realize that there are far more people who are so unfortunate in this life, and you just have to look at yourself, and every day you're alive and you have another chance to make yourself better. So it's really about contentment. It's also age. I remember when I was younger, I wanted to rule the world. Now I sort of like just want to take a nap.
Is there any kind of professional accolade that you're wanting to get? Dress maybe Meryl Streep for the Oscars? Or,
sure, of course. Yeah. That'll be fun. That'll be great. But right now, I'm thinking really I'm thinking of ways how I can outlive and outlast myself. How I can live and outlast my life brand. That's my goal. I work so hard to be able to do this, and perhaps one day one of my nieces or nephews would like to follow my lead, and that's my game plan. But I'm not going to force it, but I'm really putting that lovely carrot in front of them that we've set this up already, and some of you perhaps can follow their lead. And there are signs that I might have a niece or a nephew who is inclined. But that's the goal. More than anything else is to continue a succession plan of sorts, so to speak. And perhaps they will be the ones who will be dressing Meryl Streep. She'll still be around by then, I'm sure.
What has been your biggest thrill?
Oh my goodness. Honestly, my biggest thrill right now is, like, for instance, me having done and it's great. A friend's wedding, and then they have a child. I did her baptismal gown, and then I did her first birthday, and then I did her debut, and now I'm doing her wedding. So full circle. Because if you imagine in 25 years, that can happen. If you think about
that
it.
would make me feel really old.
Really?
But that's great. Yeah.
It's sort of like in reverse. I feel so much thrill and joy that after 25 years, they still trust me. I feel relevant. I feel important. I feel that I've done my job well. Because it's true. I've had two experiences that I've known this little girl even before she was born.
Yeah.
So in that 25-year span, I was able to experience that sort of like full circle. And that for me is a thrill. That's exciting. That's a blessing.
If you have one last words of advice for anybody who's young, and maybe unsure about what they want to do or where they want to go or what they want to be, and don't know how to begin to, like, you were very sure from the very beginning that you wanted to pursue this.
Number one, try. Okay, if you don't try, you wouldn't know. And make as much as mistakes as you can. When you're young, just make so much mistakes. And mistakes for me are the best lessons in life. The more mistakes you make, the smarter you become. And for those who are not sure about their journey, just do everything. I mean, at the end of the day, life's too short not to try. I always sort of like just try. And the worst thing that can happen is you can just sort of like try again. When we were kids, there was a rhyme, try and try until you die.
Yeah.
I believe that's so
really
true.
80s. Yeah, that's true. I remember that. Yeah.
Until you die.
What would you say, what was your biggest mistake? And how did you learn from it?
My biggest mistake was sort of like listening to all the criticisms and all the negative energy, enough to sort of like really destroy me. There's one point in my life that there's so much criticism and so much negative feedback at the work that I did and that I was doing. I wanted to close shop. I wanted to sort of like just pack up, go, forget about this journey.
How long had you been doing it at that stage when that happened?
I remember 2001. That was the year that was very difficult for me. I did a fashion show and nobody enjoyed it. Nobody liked it. And again, my parents came to the rescue and said, you know what? Look at your books. Are you making money? Are you paying your rent? Are you paying your employees on time? Do you have money in your bank? Do you have enough to sort of like pay your rent? And all the check marks was there. And then they just said, who cares what these people say? They're not feeding you. You're not responsible to them, but you are responsible to these people who work for you. And so, I sort of like washed my face and continued and woke up the next day. Okay, let's do this again.
Brilliant.
Thank you.
Rajo, thank you so much.
Thank you, Marga Ortigas.
Well, there you have it. Rajo Laurel is proof that the old adage is true. You'll never know unless you try. Thanks for listening to another episode of About That. Don't forget to rate us and subscribe. And if there's anything you'd like to see featured on the show, do drop us a line. I'm Marga Ortigas. Thank you, and see you next time.